You know what I hear a lot when people start planning for retirement? They'll say, Adam, we're just gonna downsize. We'll sell our big house, we'll buy something smaller, and we'll use that extra money to fund our retirement. On paper, it sounds like the perfect solution, right? Less maintenance, lower costs, and a big chunk of equity now freed up. Now, here's the truth though. Downsizing isn't always the golden ticket that you'd imagine. In fact, for some retirees, it can create more stress than it actually solves. So, today, we're going to pull back the curtain on downsizing. We're going to talk about the dream, the hidden costs, the lifestyle trade offs, and when it actually works. And I'm going to share a few stories along the way, good and bad, of retirees that I've worked with who have went down this path. Because the truth is, downsizing isn't about square footage. It's about whether your home supports the retirement that you actually want to live. And by the way, even if you're already made the decision, one way or another, this conversation might help you see things a little bit differently. So let's start with why downsizing sounds so appealing. Because for most Canadians, our home is our biggest asset. After decades of mortgage payments, upkeep, maybe a few renovations along the way, we've built up a lot of equity, especially in cities like Toronto, Vancouver, and Ottawa, and even some mid-sized cities like Kingston, right? Now, for some, home values have climbed so high that people are actually sitting on more wealth in their house than they actually have in their investment accounts. So it's natural to think that if I sell, I'll unlock all this value. I'll have cash to put in the bank, I'll lower my bills, and it's going to just require less upkeep. And there's truth in that. A smaller place usually means lower property taxes, less maintenance, and sometimes even lower utility bills. But there's also this psychological pull of simplifying, right? We spend so much of our working years and lives accumulating things: bigger house, bigger yard, more rooms, more stuff. And retirement feels like the right time to scale back, to focus on what matters most. And if you're sitting in a detached home in Toronto worth $2.5 million, the math looks really tempting here, right? Sell a $2.5 million home, move into $1 million home, and bank the difference. Now, that's the downsizing dream, right? But like most dreams, the reality is a little more complicated than that. Here's what people don't always see. First, the transaction costs. Now, realtor commissions run 4 to 5%. So on $1 million home, that's $40,000 to $50,000 gone right there. Then we add legal fees, land transfer tax on that new purchase, which in Toronto, by the way, is double. And then you have moving costs. Now, if you've already started doing the math here, that's tens of thousands before you've even unpacked a single box. Then there's the new place itself. Now, most retirees don't move into a perfect move-in ready condo or bungalow, and they call it a day, right? They want to paint. You want to upgrade the flooring. You want to buy new furniture that fits, maybe even renovate the kitchen or the bathroom. Now, suddenly that 400,000, 500,000, whatever you've banked, well, it disappears very quickly. Now, let's not forget about the ongoing costs too. Now, many retirees swap property taxes for condo fees, thinking that they're going to come out ahead. But condo fees in cities like Ottawa or Mississauga or Vancouver, they can be $6, $8, even $1,000 per month. And those fees can jump if the building faces larger repairs, maybe a new roof, elevators, or even windows. Now, I've seen retirees caught off guard when they realize that their condo fees are actually going to be higher than what their property tax was on the old house. Then there's the emotional cost. Now, this one's harder to quantify, but it's very real. Leaving the house where you've raised your kids, you've hosted holidays, you've built decades of memories, it's not just a financial decision anymore. It's going to be a lifestyle one. Now, I had a couple once who figured that they'd net about $250,000 by downsizing. After all the costs, they ended up closer to $80,000. And within a year, they told me that they regretted it. Not because the math was terrible, but because they miss their backyard. They miss their neighborhood and the community that they had built for over 30 years. Now, that's the kind of cost that people rarely factor in until it finally hits them. Next, let's talk about lifestyle. When you downsize, you're not just changing your address, you're going to be changing how you live. Now, that might mean losing your backyard or giving up privacy or no longer having the space to host family gatherings. Now, it might mean trading your quiet street for a condo with noisy neighbors or a strict strata rule. Now, for some people, that's completely fine. Even they're welcoming to that. They love this idea of less space to clean, fewer responsibilities, and being part of a condo community. Now, for others, the reality hits really hard here. You go to host Thanksgiving and you realize that you don't have a dining room big enough for everyone. Or you want to garden, but all you have is a balcony now. Or you discover maybe you don't like hearing your neighbor's TV through the wall at 10 o'clock at night. Now, that's why I often tell people to test drive downsizing. I say, rent a condo or a townhouse for 6 months. See how it feels before you sell the house. Sometimes people find that they really love it. Other times they realize the trade-offs really aren't worth it. Because remember, downsizing isn't just a financial decision, it's a lifestyle shift. Now, I don't want to paint downsizing as all doom and gloom, because for some retirees, it's exactly the right move. It works beautifully when it lines up with your lifestyle goals. Maybe you want to be closer to your kids or your grandkids, and downsizing gets you into their neighborhood. Maybe you're tired of yard work and a bungalow or condo feels like freedom. Now, for some, it's about financial necessity. They need the equity to make their retirement plan work, and that's completely okay. It can be smart and a strategic decision here. Now, for others, it's an emotional relief. They feel trapped by a home that's too big, too much work, and downsizing is like lifting the weight off of their shoulders. Now, the retirees I see who thrive after downsizing are the ones who don't just look at the money. They think about how the move supports their retirement lifestyle. Now, before you make the big leap, here are 3 questions that I ask every single one of my clients to consider. Question 1, the money. Now, after all the transaction costs, the taxes, the renovations, how much will you really net from the move? So run the numbers here honestly. Question 2 is around lifestyle. Does the new place fit the way you actually want to live in retirement? Will you still be able to host family or garden or walk to the places that you love? Question 3 is about the emotions here. So are you ready to leave your current home? And it's okay to answer no, because sometimes staying put, even if it's not the cheapest option, is the choice that supports your happiness. Now, if you can answer all 3, money, lifestyle, emotions, with confidence, then downsizing might be the right move here. If you can't, then maybe it's worth waiting. Now, downsizing isn't the only way to unlock your home's value. For some retirees, the use of a home equity line of credit or even a reverse mortgage. Now, these aren't right for everyone, but they can give you flexibility without forcing you to move. Now, for others, rent out part of your home, maybe a basement suite, or maybe you have an in-law suite, even a short-term rental if that fits your lifestyle. More and more Canadians are now investing in aging-in-place renovations. Things like walk-in showers, stair lifts, main floor bedrooms that make it easier to stay put. There's also what I call right-sizing, moving to a home that better fits your retirement lifestyle, even if it's not necessarily smaller or cheaper. For example, maybe selling a 2-story in the suburbs and buying a bungalow in a walkable neighborhood. Now, you might not pocket much extra money here, but your life might be just much easier. Now, one couple I work with downsized from a big family home into a small condo. They thought they would love it, but after a year, they were miserable. They missed their yard, their neighbors, and this sense of community that they had built. The financial gain wasn't enough to make up for their lifestyle loss. Another couple I work with did the opposite. They sold their big suburban home, they bought a smaller bungalow in a very walkable neighborhood, and used the extra money to travel. Because for them, downsizing was the best decision that they ever made. They told me that they felt freer, lighter, and happier than they had in years. And then there was one client who thought downsizing was the answer, but decided to take my recommendation and start renting first. And within the first few months, she realized that she hated condo living. That trial run really saved her from making a huge mistake that she would have regretted for the rest of her retirement. So, what's the truth about downsizing? Because it can be a very powerful tool, but it is not a silver bullet. Now, for some, it frees up money and unlocks a lifestyle that feels lighter and easier. And for others, it creates costs, emotional pain, and a lot of regret. Now, the key thing to ask yourself is, am I downsizing for financial reasons, lifestyle reasons, or both? And does this move support the retirement that I actually want? Because at the end of the day, retirement isn't about the size of your house, it's about how you live in it. Now, if you're thinking about downsizing, take the time to run the numbers honestly and test the lifestyle before making the leap. And if you want to go deeper into building a retirement plan that actually fits your life, you can visit me anytime at stonecitywealth.com. I'm Adam. We'll see you in the next video.